Welcome back to Talk the Walk with me, Sarah Wong. I'm with Mike Cheung, President of Overseas Employment Center and Director of Hong Kong Employment Agencies Association. Thank you very much, Mike, for making time for this.
Of course.
We're just talking about the subsidy that the industry is asking the government to tide the employment agencies over this difficult period when there's various flight bans and restrictions that's hampering the industry. Now, before I move on to deeper into this discussion, I wonder, you're demanding $100,000 to $150,000 subsidy per employment agency. Hypothetically, shall that amount of money is granted by the government, will that kind of improve the welfare for domestic helpers as well?
Well, I think it'll keep a lot of places open. I can't say whether that money is a direct link to some of the larger issues of helper welfare, labor issues. I think it gets into the sort of a lot of legal things as well. So I don't want to sort of overpromise that that amount of money is going to lend to sort of other spaces, but certainly it'll keep the industry afloat at this point, and I think it'll facilitate and allow a lot of helpers who are still stuck. We have about 5,000 to 6,000 helpers who are still stuck abroad to make sure that they can actually deploy into Hong Kong. When an agency goes under, it's actually very difficult. You have a lot of helpers who thought that they were coming to Hong Kong or were ready to deploy, and all that, sort of goes away. And the employer who had all these plans, they have to remake them. So it's very difficult when an agency sort of goes under. But as far as sort of the large issue of employer welfare or welfare for domestic helpers, I don't want to sort of confuse the issue and link them here.
If you have a chance to directly appeal to Secretary Law, how would you persuade them to weigh that balance in favor of your proposal?
As I said, look at this not from just the perspective of employment agencies. Look at this from the perspective of Hong Kong families and the impact that would have for them. As I said before, subsidies, again, we do get it. That would be great, and I think it would help out a lot of some of the smaller agencies from going under. But long term, it really is not going to solve the problem. And so, I don't want to presume that we are more deserving than other industries that I'm sure are hard hit. I'm just going to make our case. But in terms of balancing, these interests, and that's up to the Secretary to do.
All right, well, let's move on to another issue that you raised earlier. That's restrictions on visa applications.
Right.
Can you tell us more about what kind of predicament and what kind of difficulties is on that front?
Right. So, in the first 10 months of last year, there were 340,000 visa applications from domestic helpers. About 4,000 of that were cases where the government had deemed them to be sort of job hoppers, helpers
Right.
who they believed were unreasonably trying to end their contract, perhaps go for a job that is higher paying. And so that's about a 1%, I think, of the total number. That's about a 40% increase from the year before. In response to that, the government has increased not allowing these visas to go through, not approving them. And so about 1,700 of these ended up not getting approved. And that's almost a fivefold increase in the number of sort of visa rejections coming from the government. So I think they are very aggressively, coming down on what they deem to be job hoppers or what they feel could be job hopping. And it's having an effect, right? But at the same time, we're looking at, again, it's 1% or less than 1% of the total figure of 340,000 visa applications. And so there are legitimate cases, where helpers are unhappy with their employment or employers want to, hire somebody else. And I think, we should really balance the need to discourage job hopping from the legitimate need of domestic helpers who really, we feel have a right to seek a new job. As long as it's not out of hand where a helper is, breaking their contract left and right here. There are extenuating circumstances sometimes where helpers do want to get out of a bad employment situation, where the employers are being abusive or aren't paying them. There are situations where, again, it's legitimate. I think, given the lack of availability of supply right now, I think better balancing that need, again, to discourage job hopping and the need for helpers to be able to seek legitimate jobs. I think that's something I think the government should pay a little bit more attention to.
Well, on the note of these allegations, just a little bit more information here. The Immigration Department said there were more than 2,800 cases where helpers allegedly job hop into, like you said, to get more money, try to allegedly get more money last year. And these are allegations, and these are results that's coming from investigation that's done by the Immigration Department. So shall these investigations find that these job hopper allegations and behavior actually materialize? Would you accept that result?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. These are, there are cases now, absolutely, where helpers are, pursuing a higher salary and break their current contract. Some are doing it more than once, and of course, I think that the Immigration Department, should deal with it accordingly. It's tough right now for Hong Kong employers. Salaries have increased to roughly $6,000 now per month. It's not uncommon now to hear of $8,000 salaries, which would be unheard of pre-pandemic. For a lot of Hong Kong families, they're simply unable to afford that. And so if we're with the supply crunch and with these new salary asks, I think a lot of employers are in a bind right now. And so I think some of these policies to sort of address the most sort of egregious cases of job hopping certainly are valid, and we think they should continue so they could have that deterrent effect.
Oh, I was just about to ask you this. I was supposed to ask after this round of questions, but you touched on the wages, the questions of wages. So I want to ask you, combining the factors of supply crunch and also inflation we're seeing in different parts of the world, how is that contributing to fluctuating or impacting the wages of domestic helper in Hong Kong?
Right. As I said, salaries, the minimum allowable salary should be about 4,630. And in pre-pandemic and previous years, most helpers would be paid that rate. But now average salaries now are at $6,000, and that's for the whole market. I think for helpers who are just coming out of their contracts, have a finished contract, have some experience, and are hireable, that rate is probably higher than that $6,000, and that is not realistic for a lot of our families. I think sometimes people have, don't understand that most Hong Kong families who hire domestic helper are not necessarily wealthy. They're middle-class families who need someone to take care of their children, who need someone to take care of their elderly parents because they need to come out and work themselves. And so when you have the sudden increase in wages, and it's tough for them to handle. Now, certainly, we also understand domestic helpers; they have a right to the wages that they deserve, and we just feel that it's in some sense artificially inflated now due to the supply crunch, to the quarantine situation. We think there should be a more sort of just organic means by which wages are accurately reflected. Right now, it's not an accurate reflection. Again, if an employer is in a bind because their helper can't come, and a helper is demanding $8,000 for their salary, whereas in previous years it would be again 4,630, that's kind of unreasonable, and it's tough for the employer to handle. And even if an employer is willing to pay that, then now you have another family who aren't able to pay it without a domestic helper. And again, unlike other advanced economies, we really don't have alternative systems in place. It's hard to just, this is not, you can just hire a babysitter, or there are, lots of elderly home spots available. It's tough. And, our economy, for better or for worse, has been built around the the supply of domestic helpers for many decades now. And to make that change, we can have that conversation, but you can't do this overnight. And so
Yeah.
without these alternative systems, it's going to be tough sailing, I think, again, for the foreseeable future, as long as COVID is around.
Yeah, understood. Now, we have a lot of audience that's comprised of the foreign domestic helpers watching our channel, our news every day. So for those helpers who are watching our conversation in Hong Kong right now, what would be your message or advice even for them?
Hang in there. It's tough right now. It is tough being a domestic helper in Hong Kong. I think people don't realize, that's why we're, as an employment agency, you kind of see both sides of this. But it's tough. A lot of employers are scared of COVID now. They're not allowing or asking their helper to stay at home. They have that one day off and they can't take it. A lot of helpers, we talk about these higher salaries, but a lot of helpers aren't able to get that higher salary because they're still in their current contract. If they try to break that contract, immigration is not going to approve it. And so, it's not like this situation where, there's win-win or one party benefits, the other doesn't. It really is lose-lose. And so, again, my message to domestic helpers out there, hang in there. Things are tough now. We're hopeful that there is some light at the end of the tunnel. You're able to sort of get out of this. And a lot of helpers as well who finish their contracts and they are now have this tough decision. Do I find another job or do I go home and see my kids, my families who haven't seen in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years? A lot of helpers are facing this struggle as well. So, even after finishing their contracts, even after doing a good job, they're still, again, presented with this very impossible choice. And so all I can say is hang in there.
Yeah, it's a tough situation for everyone, literally, in Hong Kong. Well, I'm told that we're running out of time today, but thank you, Mike, for this very fascinating discussion. And please come back sometime.
Great. For
Our
sure.
Talk
Thanks
a
for
Walk
having me.
will return next Saturday on HKIBC. See you then, and good night.